This is the World Organic News Podcast for the week ending the 11th of July 2016. John Moore reporting. Quote, 45 years have passed since Earl Butz, the then US Secretary of Agriculture, asserted, "Before we go back to organic agriculture in this country, somebody must decide which 50 million Americans we're going to let starve or go hungry. Time has proven Butz very wrong." End quote. That quote comes from the blog A New Green World and their post, "Can Organic Farming Feed the World?" As it turns out, organic farming can feed the world. It might also actually save the planet. The practices of organic farming and gardening have one particular aspect which the oil and chemical fertilizer, herbicides and pesticides farming practices do not. They capture carbon and store it in the soil. But organic farming does so much more from an environmental standpoint. Not only do organic farms produce healthy food, they provide measurable sustainability returns, from bird habitat to pollination reserves for bees, butterflies and other insects, providing this crucial service. The organic farm fits within the local environmental settings rather than forcing a production method upon the landscape. That being said, organic, small area farms provide more tree cover per unit area of land, better water retention, more diversity of crops, think of stacking to get a better idea here, and humane animal production systems. Whilst we all can't live on an organic farm just yet, there are things we can do to help guide our local areas to more closely mimic the benefits those farms bring. The blog, Catherine continued, has a great post on do-it-yourself raised garden beds. The really great thing about this post is that it's from a confessed brown-thumb gardener who is still able to produce food by working with nature. The joys of raised beds are many: little weeding, better water flow, and at the same time water retention, and a harvest you've grown yourself. This post walks anyone through the necessary steps to setting up their own raised beds, but beware, this can be addictive. The blog Action is Eloquence has a post on a different sort of raised bed. You could describe it as raised beds on steroids. I'm referring to Keyhole Gardening. And this post, Keyhole Garden Update, does exactly what it says on the tin. A keyhole garden is a circular raised bed garden. This can be 12 inches high, but they tend to be a lot closer to hip height. Cut into the circle is a passageway, allowing the gardener to walk into the middle of the circle without touching any of the garden soil. Keyhole gardens truly are a thing of beauty. In this post, the garden is built up with Besser bricks, sometimes called breeze blocks in other parts of the world. And I've seen them built with logs, planks and dry stone walls. They are things of beauty, efficiency and depth. Especially depth of soil, and this is important. Not only is the soil deep, it is still enough to develop fungal and other connections within the soil. It is these interconnections with stable soils, topped up with organic matter from above, which represent the most stable and arguably productive ecosystems in the world. Think the Russian steppes, the plains of South Africa, North and South America and the Australian rangelands. Whilst the scale is impossible in a garden, the stability is greatly enhanced with the depth. So check out the blog if these ideas appeal to you. Link is in the show notes. As I mentioned last week, the film What's with Wheat will be screening in this part of the world on the 10th of August at the Glenbrook Cinema. Tickets will be available from the 3rd of August. If you're not in the area, you can still book your own screening through the website. Link is in the show notes. That brings us to the end of this week's podcast. If you've liked what you've heard, I'd really appreciate a review on iTunes. This helps others to find us. I would like to thank those that have done so in the last week. It is really appreciated. Any suggestions, feedback or criticism of the podcast or blog are most welcome. Email me at podcast@worldorganicnews.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back in a week.